before I move on to the rest of the guys here. And actually, Omen wants to know, hit him with a hot take.
Oh, you want a hot take? All right, so
one. He's the
Oh
champion.
boy.
well, first let me go with this. Let me answer your question because I think it's actually a fascinating one. That first of all, the answer is no for me. The hockey game was actually on the TV, so I was watching it a little bit. But second overtime, I was already ready to go to bed. But I will say that having coached a lot of games like in a day before, where it gets to be a lot, like all those hours. You talk about
stay up to date with that.
Like how it's very hard. It's very hard, especially when you just continue. I relate it to coaching because you kind of get those short increment breaks, and then you go again, short increment, right? And you just keep going. Yep. So it is quite a challenge, and you have to really. It's a big mental game. Everybody thinks that they're physically drained, which they are. Okay, it is very much mental in those situations. How much are you going to cope with it mentally? And it's tough. That's a lot of ice time for those guys. And in my sense as a basketball player, it's a lot of running. And for those guys, it's a lot of skating. So it's certainly, again, a wide load. But Omen Black, you want a hot take? I'm going to give you one, all right? Because I think I should lead you right in to what I was going to talk about with the NBA because I have to give a hot take right now, all right? Right now. The Miami Heat are going to the NBA Finals. That's a hot take, all right? All right, because listen, nobody, all right, thought that this team was going to do it. And listen, I was obviously hoorah, New York Knicks last round against Miami and thought it was going to happen. But ladies and gentlemen, the Miami Heat are nothing to be messed with. And as an 8th seed, okay, they are like I don't want to use this term, but I'm going to. The fakest 8th seed ever because they are not an 8th seed caliber team.
I had a conversation with Anthony Steele off the air who had asked me. He was what you thought on that?
Everybody's getting fooled by the fact that there's a number 8 next to their name when it comes to the Miami. They are not a typical 8th seed. I mean, this is a team that people forget have been to the Eastern Conference Finals 3 years out of the last 4. This is
an NBA Finals appearance with them.
This is a team that is coached by an exceptionally high-level coach, one of the best coaches, if not the best, right now in the NBA.
I would dare say in all of the 4 major sports. I would dare say Eric Spoelstra, the job that this guy's done. I mean,
yes, and he deserves every single ounce of credit for that because he is a great coach. I know some people used to go wild about, he had LeBron James.
He was a Riley puppet. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, but listen, this guy – He's done everything, like there's other coaches that have lost their superstars and they've just done nothing. Like Eric Spoelstra.
I will say this though, and Brad actually had like a coaching type question because we were talking about the 4 overtime game. But one thing I will say about Spoelstra real quick is I feel like he was the one true coach, maybe Tyronn Lue as well, but I think he was the one true coach LeBron truly respected. And I think got the best out of them.
Yeah.
Now speaking of coaching, what do you even say to your guys after multiple overtimes? Do you even say
what do you say? Especially after you lost. Yeah, after you lost that game, what do you say?
Well, even in between the overtimes, you're going between overtimes 2 and 3. What is there even to say? You're sitting in the dressing room. What do you even say?
That is a spectacular question. Because to your point, honestly, there really isn't much you can say. I mean, it's tough because that your players put it all out on the line for that long and they lost, but they did everything in their power to give themselves a chance to win. So, there is that.
Unlike basketball, hockey has the intermissions between the periods.
Yes.
In basketball, you just go right to the next overtime.
Correct. So
right to the next overtime.
Yeah, but listen, you do as you normally do. After a game, you go on about what you could have done better. You look at the statistics. You explain that. But when it comes to sometimes when you lose, you talk about certain effort plays and the little things that you could do to be better. Like those type of things you can't talk about because when you get into a game like that and you get that far and you go that long, right? You clearly did that even though you might have lost the game. It's tough to address it in that sense. And sometimes you add that to the conversation when you're a coach because that's a part of the reason why you lose, but not in those situations. So it is tough to kind of come together with certain things to say as a coach in those situations. but you find a way. And again, you don't want to harp on the negatives, especially in a game like that, because you really did a lot to win. You just got unlucky and you lost in 5 overtimes and you battled. So it is a tough slate to talk about. But again, I've been through that, maybe not 5 overtimes, but overtime games, close games that come down to a lucky shot or something.
A lot of St. Joe's games we covered where we lost some heartbreakers. I think about the game we lost. At the buzzer, we lost one.
All right, I've been in those situations, and the coaches have addressed it, and they talk about what we could have done better. But in the end, they can't question effort. They can't question certain execution. Sometimes the other team just out-executed you by one play or by one situation, and that's one of the toughest things as a coach to kind of address with your team. I had that happen a few weeks ago where my team lost in the championship by 2 points. They couldn't have played any better. But the other team just made the last shot because they had the ball last.
Well, conversely, when we beat Gordieso a couple of times, the other way around.
Well, listen, how do you think Jason felt after those games? I mean, my kid, by the way.
We'll ask Jason eventually. He'll be back on, Jason. I'll eventually get to him and ask him.
It's rough to tell a third grader, after they played that well against a quality team. My team's a good team, and they battled, and they were right there. And then the kid, it's a buzzer-beating 3. I mean, it's hard to tell the kids, and explain to the kids, oh, it's okay. Like, those kids are depressed. It's hard to do.
I think it'd actually be worse if I'm a third grader rather than a college player, because it's like, well, I could go back and say I should have did this, I should have did that better, and I'm a third grader. It's like that's my impression I'm left with. So I think it'd actually be worse if I'm a third grader. And I have a couple of comments here before I come back to some of the things that Omen would also like to give a big plug. Also, he'll be back out there for Levi McDaniel's promotion. He'll say he'll be still world champion after I put that poor excuse of a wrestler. I can't even pronunciate the name. I feel like I'm on a Howard Stern kind of a thing here where I just cannot pronunciate this person's name. So I'm just going to say who, and probably some nobody. He'll put him through hell and tables. I have no doubt that. Wish me luck. But we all know I don't need it. Like I said, I'm a truthful man. I'm only telling you the truth that I'll win. Well, you'll be back on, wink, wink, probably Sunday night to talk about it. So I'm sure we'll hear from you there, champ, for sure. And Anthony Finkel makes a good point. All comes down to which team makes that one play. So, I mean, Brad, coming back to the NBA before I get to some final thoughts here for everybody else, I mean, I guess that the Miami Heat, I mean, like you said, they're the fakest 8th seed in history. If you want to call them an 8th seed, they're on the verge of being the second 8th seed to ever play in the NBA Finals. And the most fakest 8th seed in history, who was the first team to do it, was the 1999 New York Knicks. And the only reason they were an 8th seed was because it was a 50-game lockout season. And I think teams 1 through 8 were separated by 7 games, 8 games. So that really doesn't count. So, I mean, speaking of teams that make plays, it's the Miami Heat. And the Miami Heat, for whatever reason, are 5-3 on the road this year in the playoffs. And one of the reasons why you think that they have a very good shot at getting into the NBA Finals is they haven't lost yet in Miami. And it seems like the way Boston played tonight, they're 10-11 the last 2 years at home, which is unbelievable in the playoffs in Boston. That it's almost a foregone conclusion that our buddy Alec Willis is going to be watching the NBA Finals like everybody else as a spectator.
I'm so glad you brought his name up because I have a big statement for that man.
Well, what is the hot take tonight?
This should have actually – I'm sorry, Omen Black. This really should have been my hottest take of the night because I got something to say to Alec Willis because he put himself on the record. He went one step too far and now is realizing that he stepped in mud because I'm about to make sure he is aware of the mistake that he made. Ladies and gentlemen, Alec Willis, all right, my good friend from St. Joe's, Brooklyn. A great
he had a birthday not too long ago, by the way, and his family had birthdays also.
Yeah, happy belated birthday. He's from Staten Island like Tom Bryce. All right, listen carefully, all right? You, Alec Willis, had the audacity of calling the Philadelphia-Boston series the varsity game and the Knicks-Heat series the JV game. Do the Heat look like a JV team to you? Because they're going at the varsity team and they're kicking your butt, all right? And they're talking trash and they're in your face, right? And they're out executing you.
Where got the Celtics face side? Did you see that?
Oh, Jimmy Butler got right in Grant Williams' face and basically did not back down. And we know Jimmy Butler. I'll get to him in a second. But let me get back to Alec Willis. You called that matchup a JV matchup. Well, guess what? Right now, it looks like the varsity matchup, and the Celtics look like the JV team right now. Especially when it comes to that conversation. And I know Alec will have to agree with me on this one, especially when it comes to coaching. Now, I am a JV coach, and I know that my abilities are pretty good, or at least I believe in my abilities, to the fact where I could probably do better than some varsity coaches. All right, and that's how I feel.
Oh,
All
I
right.
would say I would respectfully agree with that. Okay, go ahead, continue.
What I'm
I
saying
agree with
is,
that.
when it comes to coaching right now, Eric Spoelstra is a varsity coach, and Joe Mazzulla, I don't even know if I could put him as JV. I could put him as a freshman coach right now. I mean,
Ooh,
he is not
ooh.
ready for this, and he is a problem with the Boston Celtics, Joe Mazzulla. Okay, and I like Joe Mazzulla. I think he's actually going to
Well,
become
it's a good story. It's a good story. Got into a tough spot.
yeah.
We saw what happened in the offseason. I agree.
I like him, but he's not ready for this moment. He's not. He's not. He's not. The guy they had last year. I have a lot of respect for too. He did a great job. I just think Missoula is getting very much outcoached when it comes to late game execution. Eric Spoelstra's coming through and making
Especially
sure that
double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. What kind of performance was that in the last 9 minutes of the game?
yeah.
It was
And
atrocious.
listen, this is the thing that again, as a coach, you have to make adjustments. You saw Miami making Jason Tatum go through double teams to score in the late game. What did the Celtics do against Jimmy Butler? They played him one-on-one. What did Jimmy Butler do?
Sure.
Just cook him over and over again, which is exactly what he's going to do. And he's almost like rubbing it in, like, smiling at the bench and waving and doing the too small sign. I mean, when are you going to make an adjustment to double team this man who's been dominating the playoffs? I mean, Joe Mazzulla, there's a sample size here of what Jimmy Butler and Miami Heat have been doing. You also know, as a Celtics assistant, that this is a team that's been coming at you every year. Last year, you played them in the Eastern Conference Finals. 2 years ago, you played them in the bubble, right? This is not just a Miami Heat team that you're going to have to, rely on talent to beat them. You need to be better strategically, I should say, right? You should be more prepared, right? And the Celtics are just getting absolutely brutally embarrassed when it comes to preparation, when it comes to
I think to lose
adjustments.
2 games in your home court, especially tonight.
Yeah,
The way
they are getting beat there. And you look at the assertiveness of the teams, by the way. I'm not saying the Celtics aren't playing hard. Obviously, you're playing hard in the playoffs, okay? But you could just see that dog that Jimmy Butler talks about in the Miami Heat, between him, who's obviously dominating the playoffs, and he's coming through in the clutch. Bam Adebayo, this guy has been fantastic.
we talked about him last week. He was the X factor. We thought in the sixth game against the Knicks.
Late game, he just out-muscles Al Horford for a rebound and gets a dunk, a huge dunk to go up 5. And then let me call it. I called him this in the Knicks series, Stephen Vincent. All right, Stephen Vincent. All right, this guy all of a sudden is absolutely done. And today was a big example for Gabe Vincent, because he came through in the biggest moment. He made that big shot when they were up 2. All right, yep, Jimmy Butler, you're right. Okay, and Justin's corrected me on that one, so you're right. Because it is right. Gabe Vincent made that big shot to go up 4. Gabe Vincent made the 2 free throws to go up 4 after the Celtics had scored after that. That is a guy who was undrafted, who they have multiple. Duncan Robinson comes in today after sitting the bench all season.
Not him going back in the bubble.
He sits on the bench all season, though, has a horrible year, and shows up in the Eastern Conference Finals Game 2 and drops 15 points to help them win tonight. I mean, the Miami.
Max Strus as well.
Yes, I could go down the list. Look at other guys like you could go farther down. Kevin Love, for God's sake, I mean, comes in the game.
Kevin Love, you know what? He's had some big moments for them in these series.
I mean,
here.
everybody.
Produced.
I mean, Kevin Love has killed both the Knicks and the Bucks in both series with those long baseball passes.
Yes.
Out in transition and easy Heat buckets.
Yes.
How about Kyle Lowry? I mean, he's had some big moments in these postseason.
Those 2 guys, by the way, they are champions. They've won before. Okay, and both of those guys, didn't have the greatest regular season. I mean, Lowry was hurt a lot.
They didn't need
Kevin
to.
Love
They weren't. Yes, but they weren't expected to put up the back of their basketball card. They were supposed to come in here, provide leadership, play their roles, and these guys who probably look like this might be their last shot in the ring.
And that coupled with the coach that is Eric Spoelstra has led to this combination. And I understand that. Anthony's 100% right, but and I know that a change had to be made because of what happened off the court, but you could tell the Celtics miss Ime Udoka.
Yes.
because
Yeah,
Ime Udoka
in this
last
spot,
postseason
yeah, you have to
was
not
huge for
disagree.
them with the coaching advantage because it was a seamless transition from Brad Stevens, who was a tremendous head coach. And Brad goes to the front office, and now you see Udoka take over. They look just the same, and now with Joe Mazzulla, they don't, and that's the clear X factor in the
Yeah.
series.
And I just want to add at least another player who deserves a lot of credit too. He had a really good series against the Knicks, and he's making a big impact as well, and that's Caleb Martin. Okay,
Yep,
Caleb Martin.
that was a guy that was mentioned tonight during the post game. Yep,
I mean,
absolutely.
he's been huge for them. I mean, his statistics don't jump off the wall, but his energy, he's guarding the best players on the Celtics every possession, right? When he's in there, he's getting loose balls. He's a guy who you could tell follows a leader like Jimmy Butler and plays tough and physical, right? And again, leader in Jimmy Butler. I'm also questioning the leadership on the Celtics right now, all right? Because, yeah, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are two great players, but they're also very humble. Okay, and right now, Justin mentions Ime Udoka. Well, Ime Udoka is a very accountable type of coach. He was very hard on the players. He was like Mazzulla has a different way, but sometimes when coaches have different styles, right? You need players to step up as leaders too. And I think right now, the
Al Horford. Al Horford's a veteran. He's been around a long, long time.
Yeah, but Al Horford fits into what Brad is saying. One of those guys that, is he a guy that's going to take the bull by the horn? Jimmy Butler, maybe statistically, like in the regular season, isn't the top 2 or 3 player, but what we've seen these last
and that's the difference right there.
Right.
And even like Brad said, the leadership of Kyle Lowry and Kevin Love, even though we know that they're not going to put up big stats, but it's the veteran presence, and then you have the veteran presence of Jimmy Butler plus the superstar that is Jimmy Butler
in the postseason. That's my point. If you look at these last 4 postseasons,
that's another thing too. To your point, Tom, right? This is where we get tricked about the Miami Heat because Jimmy Butler in the regular season is just a good player, right?
Yeah.
But what we always forget because the Miami Heat, they're not that team that's like winning a bunch of games in a row. They're kind of just a team that methodically wins a few
games. They made it through the play-in. That's the only reason they're here. They got through in the play-in. They had to win one game on the road.
Right, but
to make
this is who they are, though. Like they do their job. They do enough in the regular season, but then when the postseason comes, they're a whole different animal, right?
You see that sometimes in sports. Josh Beckett, right, was a good pitcher, right, but in the postseason, I mean, he transformed. We talk about Mad Bum, Bumgarner had a good career. But in the postseason, he was something else. And Jimmy Butler, now I think he's a little bit better in the back of his card compared to those players. But in the postseason, he transforms. Yes. Kawhi Leonard, another example. Kawhi Leonard, I mean, look at what he did with the Spurs and the Raptors. Regular season, very good player. But in the postseason, he just became something else.